everybody, welcome back to the Claremont Classic Garage. Spring has sprung and we're back in the shop. This is the first nice day we have had literally since Christmas. We went through like a horrible spell of about 6 weeks where it was just cold and wouldn't stop snowing and there was ice and it was just miserable. Plus we had a couple of other things going on and well, that's all behind us now, and I guess now you'll see this a little later, maybe into April. But right now it's March the 9th today, and it's the first day we got the heat off, the garage door up, birds are singing, snow is melting. It's a beautiful day. And we're going to finally get to work on our Grand Caravan here. So here's what we're up against. We've got our good used transmission from the van that we scrapped out last summer. Just kind of fixed it up a little bit. I had the pans off, put a new pan with a drain plug on it. And while we were in here, we replaced the lockup solenoid and the pressure transducer with OE Mopar parts. I also put in they call it a shift kit. There's not really much to it. I think it's one spring and one little valve you change. And we serviced it up, and that's that. I'm not going to bore you with all the stuff in there because there is so much 62 TE content on YouTube by people that actually know what they're doing. It's pointless for me to start opening them up here. At any rate, our transmission is ready to go in. So what we're going to do, we're going to lift this thing up, and I want to do some other work while I'm underneath this thing. We're going to drop the K-frame out of it because after trying to take apart the scrap van that we had, the K-frame bolts in it were fused into the frame, and it was only 3 years older than this one, although it did have double the miles and a lot more winter use on it. I want to get those bolts out and get the K-frame down, everything taken apart, cleaned up, anti-seized, put back together. I don't ever want to have to work on the bottom of this van ever again, but if I do, I want to make sure the bolts are going to come up. And while we're at it, we're going to rebush the sway bar, rebush the lower control arms. Well, it only has lower control arms. Put new ball joints in them. We're going to go around. We're going to do the brakes all the way around. And then we'll put it back together. Plus, we'll service it up while we're at it. Spark plugs, coolant, engine oil, all that good stuff. Let's get started. And something I'd like to point out before we start, this is not a how-to video of how to change the transmission in a Grand Caravan. There's so many videos about these vans out there. I'm not doing that. So the title says, yes, we're changing the transmission in a Caravan, but it's more of a vlog, okay? So if you've come here thinking it's a step-by-step tutorial how to do this, it's not. I'm sorry. Keep searching. Well, here we go, I guess. I got the shroud cover off the engine, got the battery out. Those are our first 2 steps. Now I'm going to go ahead and start getting all this front steering and suspension stuff apart. We'll just, there's nothing wrong with the calipers, so we're just going to hang them up off the strut with a piece of wire, and we'll start having at it. So we're moving right along. We've got the brakes all removed. The caliper hung up there so it's not stressing out the flex hose. I just gone ahead and knocked the tie rod ends off. We'll check them. I'm pretty sure they're okay. And now we can go ahead and we got to get the sway bar link undone. I've got new ones to put in it. And we'll get these cinch bolts out of the knuckle, and we can pull the knuckle out. Also, very happy to report that the spline is free. The 2013 parts van that we had, I had to actually throw out the left one because it was literally just fused together. It would not come apart. Well, moving right along. Now we've got the control arms out. That's good. They actually seemed in great shape. I don't know if I'll use the new parts on them yet. You know, I kind of think this thing's only got 100,000 kilometers on it, which is like 60,000 miles. Everything seems okay, and it doesn't look like it's had a lot of salt at it. So Maybe we'll save some of our new parts. At least this stuff, it's not that bad to change later once I've had everything apart and anti-seized, right? But we'll reevaluate when we get there. We'll check everything a little more closely. So now what I've got to do is there's a big bracket underneath that goes from the bottom of the rad support back to the K-frame. A bunch of bolts that screw up into the structure of the car. I'm going to try and get those out, get that thing dropped down. And there's also little brackets here, right there. Let me see. Right there on the back of the K-frame, again, with bolts that go up into the frame structure. So we'll see if we can get them out. I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so what we're up against now, I've got the rack is disconnected. You can see there, disconnected from the K-frame, so it can stay behind. We'll string it up. It can stay behind when we lower down the K-frame. That'll save us opening the oil lines and making a big mess that we don't have to make. I've had all four K-frame bolts out and back in just to make sure they're free, which is good. These things, they're a little bit different than stuff I've worked on before, in that these things, the four corners of the K-frame actually have a bushing in them, and they decided that it would be a good idea to make the center sleeve in the bushing out of aluminum and then screw a steel bolt into it. Yeah, not a great idea. But anyway, whatever, lucky for us, we got them out. The last thing I have to figure out is I've got this, the brake line and the wires for the wheel speed sensor on this corner are clipped all the way across the K-frame. So I have to find out if, I don't think I'll really be able to get under there and unclip them. So I got to see how they're attached at the other end. And with any luck, it'll just come down with the K-frame. I took the battery holder, the battery tray out, so we can start getting a little eye on here. So here's the one brake line. It comes up, it goes to the ABS brain box here. So we can undo it there. I just got to cobble up some kind of a little plug to screw into that port so we don't lose all our brake fluid, right, while it's sitting. And I'm trying to find that wire that comes up now for the ABS sensor. I might have to go underneath and kind of chase it up. Oh, there we go. The K-frame is down. Definitely was a little bit of work to get it down, but partly because I've just never worked on one of these before. If I had to do it again, it'd go a lot easier. You can see here what I was talking about, the aluminum bushings or the aluminum sleeves or cores in these bushings here. Now these bolts, I can just barely turn them with the gun to get them unscrewed from the car, but they're still stuck in there pretty good. So we're going to work on getting those out. We'll get those reamed out a bit, those bores, and get these slathered up with anti-seize when we put it back together, so it's never a problem again. Not that I hope I ever have to take this thing apart again, but whatever, it is what it is. We're working on it. I got just about everything done under here. I've gotten the bottom half of the bell housing bolts undone. We've got the starter free. There was a motor mount bracket here. I got that out of the way. One of the last steps, we've got the transmission draining here. So we could at least try to avoid making a mess. When we pull it out, I don't always have very good luck with that. Seems every time I touch a transmission, yeah, it ends up in a big mess. This thing has been fun to work on, I'll tell you. Like all the fasteners and bolts and stuff, it's not like they're all fused in there from corrosion. You can see how clean the threads are in there, but everything is just caked with Loctite. I guess that's their way of avoiding warranty problems with bolts backing out or coming undone over time. Everything is caked with Loctite, man. And the torque converter bolts, the flex plate bolts, they were pretty fun to get out because they've got, very, very shallow heads. And you got to put a lot of oomph on them to get them cracked free. And they're pretty easy to round off. One easy way is to get the torch and heat them a little bit to melt the Loctite and free it. But I would have done that if it came down to it, but we were okay. So now I'm just going to sit here and let this thing drain for a while, and then we could start working on the top side. I went ahead while the transmission is draining, and the front bushings of the subframe, both of the bolts were stuck in them. You could see all the crap there. Aluminum bushing, steel bolt, add salt, makes a big mess. So we finally got them out. I'm going to get these things cleaned up and make sure they still screw in and out of the frame easily. And so long as they do, they'll just go back in slathered with our beautiful, famous anti-seize, and we should be okay for the future. I've gone ahead now. I got a block of wood and a bottle jack, and we've supported the back end of the engine, because once we pull the mount off, the hanger mount off the transmission, there's not really going to be much holding this in there. The other way you could do it would be to put some kind of a bridge across your engine compartment and hang it with a ratchet strap or a chain or something. They actually sell little contraptions to do that. We haven't got one, so we're using the bottle jack. So now I could go ahead, get this mount out of the way, and we can grab, I think there's 2 or 3 bolts left across the top of the bell housing, a couple of wires to unhook, and we can lower this transmission down out of here. I lowered our bottle jack down, which you can see here, lowered this mount down about 2 inches on the transmission end. That'll let me get this big aluminum bracket out of here, which will free the shifter cable bracket. I could probably get these 2 things off after the transmission is out of the car. I would just have to release the shifter cable from that metal bracket there, but it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I'd rather just do it this way. We got these 2 speed sensors unhooked on the back. Now you can see there's the bolts in the side that hold that aluminum bracket on. We'll get up in there with a flexible socket, get those out, and that should be it. A couple bolts across the top of the bell housing, and we should be able to lower this thing down. I should have poured this stuff into a clear jug. You should have seen it. When I first had the problem with this transmission, I did give it the old flush and fill, and it kind of brought it back to life. I put a quart of the Lucas transmission stuff in it. That seemed to help it a little bit, but still, when I just drained it now, this stuff, oh, it's just black. It stinks. So, yeah, this transmission, even though it's only got 100,000 kilometers on it, or 60-ish thousand miles, it's fried, man. I don't know why, but I did read a lot of stuff that said if the filter plugs up easily on these things, and then they fry themselves. And well, I didn't know that, and the filter definitely plugged up, and I was out on a nice long highway run, and that's when it acted up the first time when I came off the highway, right? What are you going to do? Now we know. Well, I got the chain. I've got the thing hanging from the crane. I've gone over it a couple of times, and I'm pretty sure I've got all the bolts out. But it is kind of stuck on there. So we're going to see if we could jiggle it free. We're not going to try too hard, because yeah, you don't want to try too hard and then find out the hard way that you left one bolt in. But I think I got it. We'll have a go at it. I'll be back in a sec. So we can see there, we've got it split from the engine. All I got to do is jiggle the crane over to the right a little bit, and we should be able to lower this thing straight down. It looks like I've got it reasonably well balanced, although we won't know for sure till it's free of the engine. Okay, there we go. The transmission, you can see there. There's the back of the engine. The transmission is almost down to the ground. I just kind of, what I do is I let it down a little bit, and then check and make sure there's nothing hooked on it or anything. But that looks good. Eh? It's just about down to the floor now. All right, so there it is, out on the floor. So what I got to do before I get the new one in, you'll see here one of the One of the dowels came out with it. That should be stuck in the engine block, I would assume, because there's not one in the other transmission. And then we're going to lay a straight edge across this one and see how far back the torque converter pilot is, and make sure the torque converter pilot on our other one is the same distance back, which will tell us that the torque converter is fully set down in there and engaged on everything. And I already checked. This bolt pattern here is symmetrical, so we don't have to worry about having it lined up this way or that way, like we do with some of the older V8s, right? It just goes in, and wherever it lines up, it lines up. Well, we're looking good, so we're going to get our good used one slid under there, and then we'll get the crane and lift it up into place. Not expecting too much trouble. It should go back up in just exactly how it came on out down, or something like that. Well, it's hard to see down in there, but we've got the new transmission up in. We've started getting a few bolts into the engine block, made sure we got it in nice and even and straight. It's on the dowels. It's mated properly, so we can go around now and start putting the bolts in one by one. The bell housing bolts, that is, they torque up to 45 foot-pounds, and then we'll crawl underneath and do the torque converter bolts. Okay, that's pretty good. The transmission is in, bolted to the engine. Everything's all torqued up. The mount brackets are all back on. The starter's back on. Our torque converter is all bolted to the flex plate. Everything is all buttoned up. I don't even have any bolts left over. No parts left over. Everything went, just swimmingly well. So what we're going to do, I think, is leave it there for now. The next step, we got to put the K-frame back up. But before I do that, I want to fix the exhaust. And I've ordered a new flex pipe for it. It's inbound. So once we get that, we'll start a new video. We'll fix the exhaust, put the K-frame back up, start getting all the front of this thing all back together. And yeah, hopefully we'll have this thing back out on the road where it belongs. It's hard to see anything under here because it's so low to the ground. But, yeah, all looking good. You can see here this thing. This is what we're waiting for. This thing is just disintegrated. It's not really leaking yet, but it is not long for this world. The van is almost 10 years old, which, from all the videos I watched, is about the life expectancy of these things. So we'll just replace it and start fresh and go from there. So I guess that'll do it for this one. Working on the everyday cars isn't always as fun as working on old cars or old tractors, but hey, we got to keep them running. What are you going to do? Like I said before, I bought this thing, and the transmission, I don't think it was even 2 weeks before the transmission let me down, but I mean, we test drove it. The transmission was working perfectly. There was no codes, no lights, no nothing. It was just, it was going to do its thing, and it decided to do it 2 weeks after I bought the car. What are you going to do? That's life. There's a lot bigger things in the world that we need to worry about than a silly transmission. Anyway, I'm going to go now. It's St. Patrick's Day. I don't know when you'll see this. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. Deb has made me a nice St. Patrick's Day dinner, apparently, so I'm going to go in and enjoy that now. Thanks for tuning in, as always. I hope you'll come back and see us again. And until then, I'm Kevin saying so long for now.